I guess I'll ask Linda. I guess I'll ask Linda. I guess I'll ask Linda. Decided to turn on a little bit of whole Malibu. Great studio recording. Yeah, some of them go well. You know, Talking Heads are really good in the studios. Nirvana was actually really good in the studios. Courtney was too. You know, with the whole, what in the world? Okay, never mind. I thought it was a werewolf. It's interesting.
Watch out. Object
right.
on road ahead.
Objects, we know. Objects all around the place. There we go. It's interesting about Courtney Love, you know, her being once a sex symbol, but I think it's interesting because the 90s were a lot about emotion and unfortunately drugs were part of the 90s. They became uncool though, you know, it's like uncool now, but back in the 90s it was just a dangerous thing, you know, a forbidden thing that some of the stars kind of, I guess, had to do or something, you know, to prove some kind of point. When we went to the actor studio, we talked a lot about, you know, about heroin because you couldn't do it. Now, some of them have to experiment, but you couldn't really, it's too dangerous. But you could talk about it. It's a bad thing. And they certainly talked about it. They certainly exhibited, and they conquered it to a certain degree. But it's a deadly thing. It's a venom, you know, and it was a venom of the 90s. It killed so many. It's a killer, you know, and Courtney would say that even today. Unfortunately, you know, our Elvis of our time, Kurt Cobain, you know, it killed him. It murdered him. It didn't get his whole family, though. So there's survivors of it. But it got him. And they try to figure out, you know, and saying, you know, Kurt shouldn't have done that and all this stuff. Well, you know what? He didn't do it. It was the drug. It can happen. My father's a believer of that because we lost my oldest uncle, which is my father's older brother. It went by Stinky, but he killed himself because it was ROTC and he didn't want to go to Vietnam or something happened. He lost his love interest or whatever, and he ended up killing himself with the rifle. And my father always says, you know, it wasn't suicide, it was the disease that killed him. You know, it was the disease that got him in the end. And it's sad, you know. It's a sad thing. It became kind of a well-known thing in society with Kurt Cobain, which is still being talked about. You know, even today it's still being studied. People like Scott on Tape know a lot about it. It's an important subject because it deals with important topics. And I think it should be studied and remembered. Kurt was a pretty cool guy, you know. From what we know, we're still researching him. But he was a creative, artsy guy that fell victim to a disease, not only of drugs, but of the problem that he had with his stomach, which a relative of mine has a similar problem. It's acid reflux. It's very painful. Charlie Parker had it too, the guy who started Birdland. So it does hurt, you know. He represented something, the sound of pain. And Courtney was kind of the wife of that, you know. Courtney Love, she was kind of stepped into the wife position of that, and they met, and it's a Sid and Nancy story, but they were more successful than Sid and Nancy, you know. Sid only played the bass and was kind of quiet. They spoke out, and it's sad, you know. Icons, it's sad, but it's not the ultimate be all, you know. They're just people expressing themselves, you know, with a guitar and a mic, that kind of thing, you know. It'll continue on, you know. Rock and punk and all that kind of stuff will continue on. It's a form of expression, and it'll, like I said, it'll be analyzed. I gotta drop off this pizza. You get that stick, kitty. You teach that stick a lesson. One of his friends was playing over there. He's gonna fight that stick. It's funny. to pick up a spicy potato and a soft taco and a refill. Then I'm headed over to Torchy's to pick up tacos for you and bring it to your doorstep. It's funny when you're placing some orders and you want to make sure you use the other card, so you cover your face because you have everything recognized. You look like a freaking vampire. You have everything recognized on the face recognition. You're like, whoa! I appreciate it. I wait in basically hell, which is, what's known as Torchy's. Got some Taco Bell and Torchy's. Finish up my Taco Bell. Now to take your Torchy's to your door. We're gonna drop off your Torchy tacos to your doorstep, and then we're gonna we have to go over to Five Guys and pick up a burger and some fries and drop that at your doorstep too. Adam the Woo did a vlog of Five Guys. It's a pretty good burger place. I've been there. Their peanuts are great. You can get free peanuts too. I don't know if you've vlogged that. But anyway, I want to talk about Linda. When I first met her, she was up to like 15 beers a day, which is not good. Usually a woman can only have maybe 7 beers a week. And she has gotten down to 7 to 10 beers a day and sometimes even less. So it has gotten better. The prayers are working. I appreciate you praying for us. That's what we're asking for, is prayer. Most important thing. So, and I also thank you so much, Sonia Gear. I do thank you so much. That name Gear rings a bell. Tell you about Gear. One of my teachers at the actor studio, who was a guest teacher, was named Richard Gear. Who's a great actor, has done phenomenal work for American theater. He worked with Sam Shepard several times, and he's, one of my favorite actors. He's really great. He's a great teacher too. But he teaches more than just acting. But anyway, I don't know if that's connected. I have no idea. But thank you, Sonia, and I appreciate it. It does help. Now, about drinking. Buddhism. And I'll tell you about Buddhism in a minute. When I went to UNT, I was a vegetarian. I read a lot about Buddhism, and I did teach a class. A playwright had written,
"Watch out, vehicle on shoulder ahead."
There was a Asian playwright that wrote a play called 1,000 Cranes. And so I had, to be honest, when I gave my speech to this class in school about what it represented, so I had to study Buddhism, which I was already studying it myself when I was younger. So Buddhism has a lot to do with self-control, and 1,000 Cranes had to do with origami. I'm pronouncing that wrong, but origami. It's basically when you fold papers, you can make objects. You can make art by folding papers like a crane. Well, anyway, I taught a lecture when I was studying pedagogy, which is teaching, and I did a lecture on the play 1,000 Cranes. And I used to meditate, and I used to read a lot of different Buddhist books and stuff on Buddhism and self-control. And I always thought, I've talked to the Buddhists, everyone, there's Theravada Buddha, there's the Westernized Buddha, and I always, say things, and I'm always kind of missing what it's really about. It's more of a practice kind of thing. But we learned a thing called Eightfold Path, which is right mind, right speech, right thought, right posture, right meditation, right eating, like eating correctly, and then I know I said right meditation, right mind. It's about being on the balance. You can do it with breath and control, and it's about balancing all of the 12 monkeys that can go off in your head. which is also kind of a distant belief in Buddhism. There's a lot of mystic stuff. I didn't talk to Richard Gere about it, but I may have had some kind of eye contact kind of thing, and us knowing that there is pain in life. And in Theravada Buddhism, they believe when life is over, it's like extinguishing a flame. Now, I am a Christian, so I don't see it as a religion. So I do see it as an act in nature. I do see it in works of Scorsese, like in the movie Silence, which Scorsese made, and it does exist. So I do acknowledge it. And that's pretty much how far it goes. Now, as a, like a Buddhist monk would go door to door. They do go door to door. And they do ask charity. So it's part of it. And I think Jesus Christ, I think he is aware of that type of charity. And I think he smiles upon it. I think he does. I think it gives him his heart, meaning I think that I think it warms his heart on that. Any kind of charity, any type of nice kindness stuff. I've been around Buddhist monks. There is a Vietnamese reservation in Keller that does deal with Buddhism, and they have earned that property from the Vietnam War. And I have driven over there and seen Buddhist monks, and they have a great presence, and they're very kind people. So I have nothing to say against Buddhism at all. As a practicing Christian, and as someone that has studied it, I have nothing bad to say. I don't condone anything like that. But what do they say in Buddhism? They say when you see Buddha on the trail, you kill him, But that's a belief system that we don't understand. But I do understand God's love, and I do worship Jesus Christ. So I think all Christians at some point come across that Buddha thing and that trail, and they acknowledge it. I think we're supposed to. It'd be mean not to. And that goes for a lot of religions, because a lot of people that are theologists are people that practice preaching, or that are pastors, or people of the church. They do take world religion in mind. They take it serious. They don't really preach it, but they do learn about it for certain reasons. And they do talk about it in Sunday school. It is talked upon. Buddhism is mentioned. And if that is coming from Richard Gere in some way, I am deeply appreciative, and I do appreciate you helping. Thank you so much, brother. Now, I don't know Richard Gere's heart, only God does. And I don't know really, anybody's heart, only God does. But I do know that people have the right to believe what they want to believe. In this country, they do. And there is a fine line between church and state. So when that's trespassed on in any religion, it doesn't matter if it's Christianity, Buddhism, or Hinduism, or Islam, or Baha'i, which I've had friends that are Baha'i, okay? Because the theater brings all that together to celebrate. And when, that line is crossed between church and state, it doesn't mean Christianity church. It means any church. It'll be well aware, meaning it would be noticed. So, and it would be looked down upon and frowned upon. So, but what I'm trying to say ultimately is that we have to be careful and allow people in this country, even as a government, to allow people to worship freely. And when our laws get in the way of their way of thinking, and this goes all the way back to civil rights, to gay rights, to any type of belief or faith, we have to respect them as long as they're civil and kind. Because remember, ultimately, I'll just put it this way, and even in Buddhist, there is no law against kindness. They would believe that too. We must be kind. So thank you. I'm whoever it is that helped, I'm so thankful. I'm very, very thankful. Thank you so much. You're so very kind, and my blessings go to you. Thank you. Trees was playing Nearly Lost You. Now, Sam Shepard certainly wasn't praising alcoholism, but he was addressing it, sometimes even in a comical way, and I think True West, he nailed it. Well, those writers would be exactly what they were. He was writing reality. They're not comic strip characters. That's completely how it would be, waiting around on Solomon to give them the hundreds of thousands of dollars for the script. Something that goes on and on and on, non-stop. It's almost waiting for Godot with script writers. True West is brilliant. It's a masterpiece by far. Hyper-realism, nearly. Shepard was known to drive miles and miles and miles and miles in his car. He wrote a book about it called Cruising Paradise, Sam Shepard. He started off writing almost like comic strip plays. Richard Gere helped him with one of them. The guy in the electric chair play. That's what I always call it. But he wrote comic strip stuff like Mad Dog Blues, Cowboy #2. The early stuff was very comedic, and the critics hated it. And he put all the bad reviews on the cover of his published book, which was a thing of plays. A collection of plays is a published book. It's considered a published book. And so he'd put it all there, all the bad reviews. He loved it. He also did like stupid little music reviews for these small little bands in New York City too, all the time. He was nearly a rock star himself, and he started his own band way in the early days. I've read all about him. The Holy Moly Rounders. And he knew Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell wrote a song about Sam Shepard called Coyote. It was about Sam Shepard hitting on her. You know, Sam Shepard romanticizing her, you know, dancing her around. Shepard had an alcohol problem, and it shows in his work. And usually in interviews, he'd be sitting around sipping on a beer. Someone I always wanted to meet, someone I always looked up to. And I tried to meet him when Kathy Bates did a movie. She tried to bring him out to Dallas. And Kathy Bates did a movie about Dashel. Dash. They called him Dash. It was a writer. Dash Hammett. But he was a writer. And it was a movie, a great movie that you should see, about Lily Hammett, who wrote Little Foxes, and Sam Shepard, not Sam Shepard, but another noir writer, a thriller that wrote pulp fiction, basically, like not comic strip, but like thrillers. His name was Dash. That was his nickname. So Sam Shepard was to show to the premiere, and it was in Dallas. And Kathy Bates was going to be there. This is before I ran off to Hollywood. And I was directing Action, a Sam Shepard play. I directed it at UNT. So I wrote a letter to Sam Shepard. And it was in an envelope. And it was just telling him how much I loved his work. And I invited him to come see Action at UNT. But he could not show up to the interview and to the premiere because of family issues, which he had family issues. It was a family emergency that arose. So he wasn't able to show up. But we did see the movie. It's brilliant. It's Kathy Bates directing it. Dash and Hammett or something. I'll have to look it up. Sorry. I got to read something here. Okay. I'm trying to get all the speech correct. But Dash was definitely part of it. You have to see the movie. But Kathy Bates directed it. And then, so that day I was going to go up to Sam Shepard and say, hello, Sam Shepard. You know, I really appreciate you and your work. I invite you to come see one of your plays. You know, at this college known as UNT. Boy, I would have been so happy. But I ended up directing it anyway. This is right around the time Fight Club came out. You ever seen Fight Club? And I did direct it, and they loved it. UNT liked it, and I used these lamps hanging from the wall. We did this whole action thing. I think, Ray Wartell was in it, and this guy named Steven, and a chick named Christina. And it was like great. It was great. It was great. And I put Pixie's Where Is My Mind, which is also in Fight Club. So when I went to see Fight Club, which was by David Fincher, I was like, wow, they're using the same song that I used in Action. And they used it for the final sequence with Edward Norton and Brad Pitt. You know, Where's My Mind? It was the Pixies. I was blown away sitting in the theater going, wow, I got the chills, you know, the whole chills in that moment because I love the Pixies. We used like a flashlight for Action. You know, like I was sitting working the light booth and the sound and this little tape player and all that kind of stuff. And I had a flashlight that Marjorie, who worked with Jerzy Krutowski, Marjorie Hayes, said, why don't you try like a flashlight? She was kind of guiding the play a little bit. And I had a little dinner bell that was on a timer. And every once in a while, randomly throughout the play, I'd ring this little dinner bell because they have dinner in it. Like the dinner bell was going off on accident. I think Shepard would have liked that. He would have laughed. I don't know if he snuck in or not. I don't think he did. But he might have sent a spy. And then I had a flashlight where randomly I'd flash a flashlight at one of the actors from the sound booth, put him like on the spotlight during one of their monologues because he did a lot of monologues in Action. He wrote it in London. Sam Shepard wrote it in London when he lived in London. It was good. It was well received. I had to risk my life a little bit because I had to climb up on this overhang to hang the lamps that was really high up. I had like a lamp in there, and we had a broken chair. We had a fish. It calls for a real fish. We had a gut of fish, but he wasn't able to show. And he passed away a few years back from ALS, which he had for a while. One of the reasons he may have drank, maybe. Sometimes it's self-medication. Everyone always loved Shepard, Sam Shepard. They see him as kind of Shakespeare of our time. Barry Child, True West, War in Heaven, all the greats like Action, the early stuff. Backbog, Beast Bait, you know, his collections of plays. Simpatico, they did that here at Stage West. Yeah, he was Pulitzer Prize winning. No one will ever be that great. Not that great as of a writer. No way. So I had to look it up. Sam Shepard and Richard Gere did work together on Killer's Head, which is the play about the electric chair. It's very kind of almost a comedy. It's a surreal, almost comedy. Then later on, they would work together with Terrence Malick on Days of Heaven, which is a masterpiece. They had to use peanut shells. Well, they were peeled peanut shells in reverse going upward to represent locusts in the field scenes. That's what that was. Terrence Malick's a genius. And Sam Shepard would say that too. But Gere and him worked together very well in that movie. One of our all-time best movies. I should probably put that down as maybe top 10. I'm ashamed that I didn't. But Terrence Malick did make my honorable mentions plenty of times. Terrence Malick is seen as possibly one of the greatest, probably the greatest filmmakers. Definitely one of them. But it's amazing that these circles in the theater, you know, and in film, they come together, you know, and they stay that way. Shepard I think he was like Shakespeare. What's interesting, when I went to college, he was presented alongside of Shakespeare. So in one of the Shakespeare classes, we were told to read Sam Shepard as well, or at least to acknowledge him because of how he could use verse as well as prose. But it's interesting that he is kind of our modern day Shakespeare.